It's strange, isn't it? How the world becomes quieter at night, but your mind gets louder. All day long you manage to keep yourself together. You answer messages, you smile when you need to. You get through tasks almost on autopilot. But then the night comes. The lights go off, and suddenly the thoughts you pushed away come back and sit beside you like old familiar shadows. Maybe you know this feeling too well, when your body is tired but your mind refuses to rest. And you start replaying conversations, imagining futures that scare you, re-examining decisions you made years ago, or worrying about things that haven't even happened yet. If that's you, you're not broken, you're human. Tonight I want to sit with you, not to give you quick solutions or empty advice, but to help you understand why the mind becomes a storm exactly when the world becomes silent. For the next hour, we're going to explore the psychology behind your restless mind, and the philosophy that has helped people for centuries find peace in the middle of their thoughts. So take a slow breath, let your shoulders drop, and let's walk together into the quiet side of your mind. Overthinking at night doesn't mean there is something wrong with you. It usually means something very simple. All day long, you are distracted. At night, you are finally alone with yourself. During the day, your mind has 1,000 little tasks to grab onto. Messages, notifications, work, obligations, people around you. Your brain is busy surviving, reacting, moving from one thing to the next. There is noise outside, and that noise keeps the noise inside under control. But when the sun goes down, when the world slows, cuando las luces se apagan and your body finally lies down, there is nothing left between you and your own thoughts. The same worries that were in the background all day step forward and say, "Now we have time. Listen to me." From a psychological point of view, your mind isn't trying to torture you. It's trying to process what it couldn't process before. To the brain, nighttime looks like an opportunity. No one needs you right now. No one is talking to you. You're not in a meeting, you're not driving, you're not answering emails. Perfect, the mind says. Now we can finally think about everything. The problem is that the mind doesn't know how to stop by itself. Its job is to scan for danger, find patterns, remember the past, predict the future. It believes that if it can just think a little more, worry a little more, replay the situation one more time, it will finally find the solution. So it keeps going, and going, and going. At 2 in the morning, your brain is still trying to solve things that are not solvable in this exact moment. Conversations that already happened, decisions that have already been made, futures that haven't arrived yet. From the outside, it looks like madness. From the inside, it's just your nervous system trying to feel safe. There's another layer to this. Una capa más profunda que la psicología y se acerca a la filosofía. The night removes distractions and exposes meaning. During the day, you can hide from the big questions. You can pretend you're fine. You can bury yourself in tasks, in entertainment, in noise. But when you lie in the dark with only your breathing and your thoughts, preguntas más grandes aparecen. Am I happy with my life? Am I in the right relationship? Is this really what I want to do with my time here? Why do I feel so empty, even when I'm busy? These are not light questions. They are existential questions. Questions about who you are, what you want, what you fear, what you've been avoiding. And your mind, being the loyal servant that it is, tries to answer them all at once. Psychology calls this rumination. The repetitive circular thinking that doesn't lead anywhere new, just back to the same emotional place. Una y otra vez. Philosophy, however, has another way of looking at it. Some philosophers would say, the night is not attacking you, it is revealing you. At night, the mask you wear for the world becomes useless. You don't have to impress anyone. You don't have to perform. You don't have to pretend. And in that raw, quiet space, your deeper self finally has a chance to speak. The problem is that we were never taught how to listen to ourselves without judging, without panicking, without trying to shut everything down. So when the deeper voice rises, the one that says, I'm not okay, or I feel lost, or I'm scared of the future, you don't know what to do with it. You try to escape it. You pick up your phone, scroll, watch something, distract yourself. For a few minutes it works. Pero cuando vuelves a dejar el móvil, the same thoughts are still there, waiting patiently. From a psychological angle, this makes sense. The brain doesn't like unfinished business. Unprocessed emotions, unanswered questions, unresolved conflicts, they don't disappear because you ignore them. They sink deeper, and they grow heavier. From a philosophical angle, this is part of the human condition. To be human is to be aware that life is limited, that time is passing, that choices matter. During the day, you can outrun that awareness. At night, you can't. Overthinking at night is often the moment when the mind and the soul collide. Your practical worries meet your deeper questions. Your to-do list meets your fear of wasting your life. Your regret about yesterday meets your anxiety about tomorrow. No wonder it feels overwhelming. So the first thing I want you to understand is this. You're not weird for thinking too much at night. You're not weak, you're not broken. You are simply awake to parts of yourself that you don't have time to notice cuando el mundo está corriendo. In a way, overthinking is your mind knocking on your own door saying, there is something inside you that needs attention. Not punishment, not shame, not more judgment, just attention. But of course, when you're lying there exhausted with work the next morning, the last thing you want is a deep conversation with yourself. You just want to sleep. So you get trapped in a war. One part of you wants rest. Another part wants answers. One part of you says, please, stop thinking. Another part whispers, if I stop thinking, I'll lose control. This is the conflict we need to understand if we ever want to make peace with our mind at night. Because sleep is not just a physical state, it is an act of trust. To fall asleep, you must trust that the world will not collapse while you rest, that you don't need to carry everything alone for 8 hours, that you can put things down without losing them. Overthinking is what happens when your mind does not trust that. It doesn't trust that tomorrow you will handle things. So tonight you tries to handle everything in advance. It doesn't trust silence, so it fills that silence with noise. It doesn't trust uncertainty, so it invents scenarios, even painful ones, just to feel like it knows what might happen. Your brain would rather imagine a disaster than sit in the unknown. From a psychological point of view, that's a survival strategy. From a philosophical point of view, it's the struggle of a consciousness that wants control in a universe that refuses to be controlled. If you've been hard on yourself for this, if you've ever thought, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just switch off? I want you to let that question soften. Nothing is wrong with you. You are simply sensitive to the weight of being alive, sensitive to your own story, sensitive to what you feel. The goal is not to kill that sensitivity. It's to learn how to live with it sin que te devore cada noche. Tonight, in this long journey together, we're not going to try to silence your mind by force. We're going to do something different. We're going to get to know it, understand its patterns, see where it's trying to protect you, even when it hurts you in the process. Because once you understand why your mind gets louder at night, it stops feeling like a monster and starts looking more like a scared guardian, one that's been working overtime without guidance. And maybe, just maybe, by the end of this, you'll be able to say to your mind, thank you for trying so hard to keep me safe. You can rest a little now, I'll take it from here. That's where we're heading, but to get there, first we need to look more closely at the specific thoughts that keep you awake and what they are really trying to tell you. If you pay attention to your thoughts at night, you'll notice something important. They're not all the same. They don't all come from the same place, and they don't all want the same thing. Sometimes it feels like there are different voices inside your mind, not in a pathological way, but in a very human way. It's like you have different inner characters, each one with its own fears, its own needs, its own version of the truth. And at night, when everything is quiet, they all decide to speak at once. One of them talks about the past, another worries about the future, another attacks you for not being enough, another wonders what other people think of you, another just wants peace. So let's slow down a little and listen more closely to the main voices that show up when you're lying in the dark. Because once you recognize them, you'll stop feeling like you're drowning in thoughts and start realizing This is not one big storm. It's a few specific winds blowing at the same time. The first voice is the voice of regret. It speaks in sentences that begin with, I should have, I shouldn't have, why did I, why didn't I? This voice rewinds your life like an old tape, pausing at moments you wish had gone differently. The argument where you said too much, the opportunity you didn't take, the relationship you stayed in for too long, the risk you were too afraid to take. Regret is a psychological echo. It's your brain trying to re-edit a story that is already written. From a philosophical point of view, regret is strange. You can't go back and change the past, and yet the past still has power over you. You lie there at night replaying things that exist only in memory, feeling emotions as if they were happening again. Part of you believes that if you replay it enough times, you'll finally understand it or somehow fix it. But regret doesn't fix the past. It just keeps you living there. Then just when you're exhausted from revisiting old scenes, another voice shows up. The voice of fear of the future. This one speaks in what ifs. What if I fail? What if I never meet the right person? What if I end up alone? What if this is as good as it gets? What if tomorrow something goes wrong? This voice doesn't look backward. It looks forward, but not in hope. It looks forward like a guard checking the horizon for danger. From a psychological point of view, this is your anxiety trying to protect you. It believes that by imagining every possible bad outcome, you'll somehow be more prepared. So it runs simulations in your mind. This could go wrong, that could go wrong, and if that happens, then this might happen. Until your chest feels tight, and your body is reacting to things that haven't even happened yet. From a philosophical angle, this is the mind wrestling with uncertainty. The truth is, you don't know what will happen. You never did. You never will. But the mind doesn't like that. It doesn't want mystery, it wants certainty, even if that certainty is painful. So it builds entire imaginary futures, full of loss and failure and shame, and then makes you feel all the emotions of those futures, right now, in your bed, in the dark, when nothing is actually happening. Then, as if these two voices weren't enough, there's another one that likes to visit you at night. The voice of self-judgment. This one doesn't talk about the past or future. It talks about you. It says things like, you're not doing enough. You should be further ahead by now. You're lazy. You're not attractive enough. You're not smart enough. No wonder things don't work out for you. This voice isn't analyzing reality. It's attacking your worth. From a psychological point of view, this voice often comes from internalized criticism. Things you heard directly or indirectly growing up. Parents, teachers, friends, past partners, comments society made about what you should be. You absorbed those messages and now the critic lives inside you. At night, when there are no other voices around, it finally has the microphone. It's important to understand something about this inner critic. It doesn't know how to motivate without harming. It believes that if it beats you up enough, you'll finally change. That shame will make you stronger. That self-hate will somehow build a better version of you. But all it really does is make you feel smaller and heavier at the exact moment when you most need gentleness. From a philosophical angle, this voice is what some thinkers would call the internalized gaze of others. You see yourself the way you imagine others see you. You judge yourself through their eyes, through their expectations, through their standards. At night, when you're lying there, you're not just alone with yourself. You're alone with all the versions of you that you think other people might be disappointed in. There is another voice that we can't ignore, the relational voice. This is the one that turns your mind toward other people, toward love, heartbreak, friendship, family. It says, why did they say that? Why didn't they reply? Do they still care about me? Did I ruin everything? Am I being used? Am I being replaced? Psychologically, this voice is tied to attachment. Humans are wired for connection. We need to feel seen, valued, wanted. When that need feels threatened, a message left on read, a change in tone, a distance you can't explain, your brain treats it like a survival problem. Connection feels like safety. Disconnection feels like danger. So at night, when there is no reassurance, no clear answer, no direct communication, Your mind fills in the gaps. You imagine what they might be thinking, what they might be doing, what they might be feeling about you. From a philosophical angle, this is the pain of being a social creature who can never fully know what is inside another person's mind. You can guess, you can hope, you can fear, but you can't know. That gap between what you feel and what you can know is where a lot of nighttime suffering lives. And finally, underneath all these voices, regret, fear of the future, self-judgment, relational worry, there is one more, a quieter one, a softer one. It doesn't shout, it doesn't accuse, it doesn't predict, it just asks, who am I, really? This is the existential voice, the part of you that wonders about identity, purpose, meaning. It shows up in questions like, is this the life I wanted? Am I living in a way that feels true to me? Why do I feel disconnected from myself? What kind of person am I becoming? This voice is not your enemy. In many ways, it is the most honest part of you. But when it appears at 2 in the morning, mixed with anxiety, regret, and self-criticism, it can feel unbearable. You're not just thinking about one thing. You're thinking about everything. Your past mistakes, your uncertain future, your flaws, your relationships, your identity. It's like trying to carry an entire lifetime in a single hour before sleep. No wonder your chest tightens. No wonder your muscles won't relax. No wonder your mind keeps spinning. If we step back and look at all of this together, it becomes a little clearer. Overthinking at night is not your mind going crazy. It's your mind trying to perform every psychological and philosophical task at the same time. To protect you from danger, to fix the past, to predict the future, to earn love, to avoid shame, to find meaning. All in the dark, all at once, all without rest. When you look at it this way, it makes sense that your mind feels overloaded. The good news is, you don't have to fight all these voices. You don't have to silence them completely. You don't have to empty your mind to sleep. What you need is a different relationship with them. To recognize, this is regret talking. This is fear of the future. This is my inner critic. This is my attachment. This is my search for meaning. Because when you can say, I see you, you are no longer fully inside the thought. You are observing it. And the moment you can observe a thought, you are no longer trapped by it in the same way. In the next part of our night together, I want to walk with you through a different way of being with these voices. A way that doesn't demand that you solve everything tonight, but that allows you to soften into a more gentle relationship with your own mind. Not by force, not by pretending you don't care, but by learning something simple and very powerful. How to let thoughts be there without turning each one into a battle. For now, just notice. Notice which voice has been the loudest for you lately. Is it regret? Is it anxiety about tomorrow? Is it shame? Is it fear of losing someone? Is it that quiet sense of being lost? Whatever it is, you don't have to push it away yet. Just acknowledge, yes, I hear you. That's the beginning. Here's something that might surprise you. Your mind doesn't keep you awake at night because it loves thinking. It keeps you awake because it believes thinking is protection. In other words, your brain isn't chasing answers for fun. It's chasing answers because uncertainty feels like danger. And when the lights go out, uncertainty gets louder. During the day, uncertainty is diluted. You're moving, you're doing. You're surrounded by tasks and people and noise. But at night, uncertainty becomes a room you can't leave. So your brain does what it has always done to keep you alive. It scans, it searches, it predicts, it reviews, it tries to control. Even if there's nothing to control, even if the only thing happening is you trying to sleep. There's a very human reason this feels so intense at night. Your body is tired. Your defenses are down. Your emotional muscles are weaker. So thoughts don't just appear as thoughts. They arrive as feelings. A simple memory becomes a wave in your chest. A small worry becomes a knot in your stomach. A what if becomes a racing heart. And suddenly you're not thinking about something anymore. You're living inside it. Psychology has a name for this. Your mind is activating your threat system. When your brain senses danger, real or imagined, it releases stress chemistry, adrenaline, cortisol, tension. And here's the cruel part. Those chemicals are designed to keep you awake. They were never meant for bedtime, they were meant for survival. So when the mind starts spiraling at night, it becomes a loop. You think something scary. Your body reacts as if it's true. Your body being activated convinces your mind it must be true. And then your mind thinks even more. It's like your brain says, if my heart is racing, there must be a reason. If I feel anxious, something must be wrong. And then it searches for a reason. It pulls a memory, a fear, a mistake, a person, a future. It doesn't matter what it grabs. It just needs a story that matches the feeling. That is why overthinking feels so convincing at night, because it's not just mental, it becomes physical. Now here's the deeper philosophical layer, and it's important. Overthinking is often not just about the problem. It's about the need to not be helpless. Most people can tolerate pain, but they struggle to tolerate the feeling of having no control. So your mind does the one thing it can do in the dark. It thinks. Thinking becomes a ritual of control, a way to feel like you're doing something, even when you can't. It's like the mind believes, if I keep analyzing, I won't be caught off guard. If I keep replaying, I won't make the same mistake. If I keep worrying, I won't be disappointed. If I imagine the worst, it won't destroy me if it happens. And honestly, this makes sense. If you've been hurt before, your mind learned a lesson. Safety comes from predicting pain, so it predicts. If you've been abandoned, your mind learned, don't relax, people leave, so it stays alert. If you've failed, your mind learned, don't get comfortable, the next failure is coming, so it rehearses. If you've been criticized, your mind learned, be harsh with yourself before the world is, so it attacks. None of these patterns make you weak, they make you adapted. They're strategies your nervous system built in order to survive your past. But strategies that help you survive one season of life can become prisons in another. What protected you yesterday can sabotage you today, and nighttime is where you feel that sabotage most clearly. Because night demands surrender. To fall asleep, you have to do something the anxious mind hates. You have to let go. You have to stop controlling, stop monitoring, stop rehearsing, stop scanning. You have to trust the dark. And if you've been through enough chaos, trusting the dark feels impossible. This is where philosophy becomes quietly helpful. Because philosophy doesn't always try to fix you. Sometimes it just tells you the truth about being human. And one of the oldest truths is this: you cannot control life completely. You cannot predict everything. You cannot prevent all pain. But most people live as if they can. And that's where the suffering grows. Overthinking is the mind's refusal to accept the uncontrollable. It's the human mind saying, I will not be surprised by life. But life has never promised you that. Life has never promised certainty. So at night, when your mind demands certainty, it's demanding something the universe doesn't provide. And that's why it exhausts you. Now, I want to say something gently, something important. The goal of this video is not to make you stop thinking forever. The goal is to help you stop treating thoughts like emergencies. Because most thoughts at night are not emergencies. They are unfinished emotional messages. A thought isn't just a thought. It's usually a signal. A signal of fear, a signal of grief, a signal of unmet needs, a signal of loneliness, a signal of pressure you've been carrying without rest. When we treat every signal like an alarm, we never calm down. So the question becomes, how do you respond to the mind at night in a way that calms it, without suppressing it, without fighting it, without making it worse? And the answer begins with something simple that sounds almost too small. You separate yourself from the thought, not by pushing it away, but by changing how you relate to it. Because you are not your thoughts. You are the one who notices them. And this is where we start shifting from being inside the storm to watching the storm pass. In the next chapter, we're going to practice a skill that psychologists use and philosophers have hinted at for centuries. a way to hold your thoughts softly, so they don't grip your body like a threat, a way to let the mind speak without letting it take over the entire night. And I promise you, not in a motivational way, not in a fake way, but in a real way. Once you learn this, the night becomes less of a battlefield and more of a quiet place you can return to. For now, just notice one thing. When your mind starts spiraling tonight, try asking yourself gently, is this thought trying to protect me? What is it afraid will happen? What is it trying to control? Don't answer it aggressively. Just listen. Because the moment you listen without panic, your nervous system receives a new message. I'm safe enough to observe. And that message is the beginning of sleep. Most people try to stop overthinking the same way they try to stop a song stuck in their head. By fighting it, they tell themselves, stop, shut up, go to sleep. Why am I like this? Come on, not again. And if you've ever tried that, you already know what happens. The thought gets louder, the body gets tighter. The frustration grows, because the mind doesn't respond well to force, especially at night. When you fight a thought, you give it power. You send your brain a message, this is dangerous, this is important, we must handle this right now. And your nervous system hears that, and activates even more. So what we need is not more force. We need a different posture, a different way of holding thoughts, not like enemies, more like visitors. Because most thoughts at night are not problems that need immediate solutions. They are emotions looking for space. And when you give them space in a calm way, they often soften on their own. There's a psychological skill that explains this beautifully. It's used in therapy, but it's also very natural once you understand it. It's called cognitive diffusion. Don't worry about the name, the idea is simple. Instead of merging with the thought, you step back and watch it. Instead of, I am in danger, it becomes, I am having the thought that I am in danger. Instead of, I ruined everything, it becomes, I am having the thought that I ruined everything. It sounds small, almost silly at that, but it changes everything. Because when you say, I am having the thought, you create distance. You move from being inside the story to observing the story. And the nervous system relaxes because observation is not emergency. Let me show you how this feels in real life. You're lying in bed. You remember something embarrassing you said years ago. The thought arrives. Everyone thinks you're stupid. If you merge with that thought, your body reacts like it's true. You cringe, your stomach tightens, your face heats up, your mind searches for evidence. It becomes a spiral. But if you step back and say, gently, I'm having the thought that everyone thinks I'm stupid, something shifts. The thought is still there, but it's less absolute. It becomes a mental event, not a verdict. And that's the whole point. Thoughts at night feel like truth, but many of them are just the brain processing fear. Now here's where philosophy quietly joins the room. Because philosophers have said versions of this for centuries, even without therapy language. The Stoics, for example, would tell you, you are not disturbed by events, but by your judgments about events. In simple words, the thought is not the problem. Your relationship to the thought is the problem. Buddhist philosophy says something similar. The mind creates suffering by clinging to a thought, clinging to a story, clinging to certainty, clinging to identity. When you cling, you suffer. When you loosen your grip, you breathe again. So here's the practice I want you to try. Not like homework, just like a gentle experiment tonight. When a thought appears, don't argue with it. Instead, do 3 things. First, name it. This is regret. This is anxiety. This is my inner critic. This is attachment fear. This is uncertainty. Naming the thought takes away some of its mystery. Your brain stops treating it like a monster and starts treating it like a known pattern. Second, externalize it. Say quietly in your mind, I'm noticing the thought that, or my mind is telling me. So it becomes, my mind is telling me I'm going to fail. I'm noticing the thought that I'm alone. My mind is telling me I ruined things. Notice what that does. It creates just enough distance for your nervous system to calm down. Third, respond with softness. Not with logic, not with arguments, just softness. Like you would respond to a scared child, because that's often what the anxious mind is. Protective part of you that's afraid. So you can say something like, "Thank you, mind. I hear you. I know you're trying to keep me safe. We don't have to solve this right now. We can rest for now." This might feel strange at first, but it's one of the most powerful things you can do at night, because the mind is like a guard dog. If you kick it, it barks louder. If you scream at it, it panics. But if you calmly place a hand on its back and say, "It's okay, I'm here," it begins to settle. Now you might be thinking, but what if the thought is real? What if it's important? And that's a fair question. So let me answer it in a very human way. Some thoughts are important, but they are not urgent at 2 a.m. Your mind thinks nighttime is the best time for deep problem solving, but it's not. At night, your brain is tired. Your emotional filters are weaker. Everything feels bigger and darker. So you end up making decisions in your head from a place of exhaustion. And the next day, you look back and think, why did that feel so catastrophic? Because your nervous system was activated. Because you were in the dark. Because you were tired. So here's a gentle agreement you can make with your mind. If this is truly important, I will write it down. And I will handle it tomorrow. Not, I will ignore it, just not now. This is one of the most calming sentences you can offer yourself. Not tonight. Not forever. Not never. Just not tonight. If you want, keep a small notebook beside your bed. When the mind presents a thought that feels urgent, write a sentence. Talk to Sarah about what I'm feeling. Think about changing jobs. Pay that bill. Apologize for that comment. Make a plan. And then close the notebook. That act tells your mind, I won't forget. I'm not helpless. I'm not ignoring this. I'm choosing rest first. Philosophically, this is profound, because it's you learning one of the hardest human skills. The ability to place your life down for a few hours without fear that it will fall apart. To accept that not everything can be solved right now. To accept that your worth is not measured by constant mental labor. You are allowed to rest. And that sentence alone can feel emotional for people. Because many of us have learned that rest is something we earn. But the mind doesn't heal through earning. It heals through safety. Now I want to add something important. This is not about becoming passive. This is not about becoming numb. This is not about suppressing emotions. It's about learning the difference between processing and ruminating. Processing is gentle. It moves forward. It has breath in it. Ruminating is harsh. It repeats, it tightens, it punishes. Tonight, we're learning how to process without punishing. And we're doing it slowly, because nighttime is not the moment for pressure. In the next chapter, I want to take you deeper. Because once you stop fighting thoughts, you start noticing something else. Under many thoughts, there is one emotion you've been avoiding. Sometimes it's sadness, sometimes it's grief, sometimes it's loneliness, sometimes it's shame. And overthinking is often the mind's way of staying in thought so you don't have to feel what's underneath. So next we're going to talk about the emotion under the noise and how to meet it in a way that calms you instead of overwhelming you. And if you're listening to this in bed right now, just breathe. If a thought shows up, try the smallest version of this practice. My mind is telling me a story, and let it float by like a cloud. Not because it's meaningless, but because you are learning something stronger than control. You are learning peace. If you listen closely to overthinking, you'll notice something almost paradoxical. Most of the thoughts aren't the real problem. They're the surface, like waves on top of an ocean. Because underneath the overthinking, there's usually an emotion your mind is trying not to feel fully. And the mind is clever like that. If it keeps you thinking, you don't have to feel. If it keeps you analyzing, you don't have to sit with the raw thing underneath. So the first question isn't, how do I stop thinking? The first question is softer and more honest. What am I trying not to feel right now? Sometimes the emotion is sadness, not dramatic sadness. Quiet sadness, the kind that sits in your chest like a weight you don't talk about. Sadness about time passing. Sadness about a relationship that changed. Sadness about the person you used to be. Sadness about a dream you outgrew or never reached. At night, sadness rises because the day is no longer distracting you, and overthinking becomes a strategy to avoid sinking into it. Other times the emotion is fear. Not fear of monsters, but fear of life. Fear that you're falling behind. Fear that you'll make the wrong choice. Fear that something will collapse if you relax. Fear that you'll lose someone. Fear that you'll never become who you're supposed to become. Fear is often disguised as planning. The mind calls it preparation, but it's really fear trying to feel safe. And sometimes the emotion underneath is shame. This one is heavy. Shame doesn't say, "I did something wrong." Shame says, "I am something wrong." It's the voice that makes you feel like you're not enough, even when you're trying. And shame loves the night because the night is quiet. There's no one there to contradict it. So you lie there and your mind starts searching for evidence. Remember when you failed? Remember when you embarrassed yourself? Remember what they said about you? Overthinking becomes a courtroom, and you become the defendant. But none of this is random. From a psychological point of view, the mind is doing something very specific. It's trying to keep you in the realm of thinking, because thinking feels controllable. Emotions don't feel controllable. You can't solve sadness the way you solve a math problem. You can't defeat loneliness with logic. You can't win against grief. And the mind hates that. So it does what it can do. It turns emotions into thoughts. It intellectualizes pain. It converts feeling into analysis, because analysis feels like movement. But what's interesting is that most people don't actually need more analysis at night. They need a different relationship with emotion. And this is where philosophy becomes deeply comforting, because philosophy has always known something psychology confirms. You can't outthink human feeling. You can only meet it. Many people live as if the goal is to never feel uncomfortable emotions, but discomfort is part of being conscious. It's part of being alive. The night just makes it more obvious. So I want to offer you a different approach, one that is gentle enough for bedtime. Not a big confrontation, not a deep emotional excavation, just a small act of honesty. When you notice your mind spiraling tonight, try this. Instead of asking, "How do I stop this thought?" ask, "If this thought had a feeling underneath it, what would it be?" And then see what comes up. Maybe it's sadness, maybe it's fear, maybe it's shame, maybe it's loneliness, maybe it's anger. And then do something that will feel strange at first. Don't argue with the feeling. Don't try to fix it. Just name it softly. Okay, this is sadness. Okay, this is fear. Okay, this is loneliness. Because naming an emotion is not the same as drowning in it. Naming it is an act of clarity. It's you saying, "I know what this is." And the nervous system loves clarity. Now here's the real secret. Most emotions at night become unbearable for one reason. We believe they will last forever. When sadness rises, the mind whispers, "This is who you are. This is your life. This will never change." But emotions are not permanent states. They're weather. And what makes weather terrifying is when you think there's no sky beyond it. So the goal at night is not to eliminate the emotion. It's to remind yourself that you are the sky, not the storm, that you can hold an emotion without becoming it. Let me make this practical and human. If you feel sadness, you don't need to chase it away. Try saying, "Sadness is here tonight. That's okay. I don't have to solve it right now. I can let it sit beside me without letting it drive." If you feel fear, fear is trying to protect me. It doesn't mean something is wrong right now. I can rest even if I don't have every answer tonight. If you feel loneliness, loneliness is a human signal. It doesn't mean I'm unlovable. It means I'm longing for connection. Notice the difference between these responses and the usual ones. Usually we panic. We treat emotion like an emergency. We try to escape, distract, or force ourselves into numbness. But that teaches the mind. Emotion is dangerous, and then the next night it becomes even more frightening. Whereas if you meet it gently, you teach the mind something new. I can feel this and still be safe. And safety is what the nervous system needs for sleep. There's a quiet philosophical truth in this. Peace isn't the absence of feeling. Peace is the ability to feel without falling apart. And the night is a teacher of that. The night is the place where you learn how to sit with yourself, not the perfect version of yourself, the real one, the one who has memories, the one who has fears, the one who wants love, the one who sometimes feels lost. So if you've been listening to this and thinking, yes, but I just want the thoughts to stop, I understand. Truly. But here's something many people discover when they practice this. When you allow the emotion underneath, the thoughts often soften, because the thoughts were never the main event. They were the mind's way of circling the emotion without touching it. When you touch it gently, the mind doesn't need to keep circling. It can rest. Now we're going to go one level deeper, because there is a specific kind of overthinking that keeps people awake more than any other. The replaying of social moments. The what did they mean? The what do they think of me? The did I ruin something? The mental rereading of texts, tones, silences. This is not just overthinking. This is the mind searching for safety in other people. There's a very specific kind of overthinking that doesn't feel like thinking. It feels like rewatching. You're lying in bed, and suddenly you're back in a conversation from earlier. A look someone gave you, a pause in their voice, a message they didn't reply to, something you said that now feels wrong, something they said that felt off. And your mind starts doing what it does best. It replays, it rewinds, it analyzes the tone, it imagines what they really meant, it writes alternate endings. You tell yourself you're just trying to understand, but underneath that, there's usually something else. A need for certainty, because social uncertainty is one of the hardest uncertainties to tolerate. You can survive not knowing what tomorrow holds, but not knowing what someone feels about you, not knowing if you're safe with someone, not knowing if you're being rejected. That hits a deeper part of the nervous system. Psychologically, it makes sense. Humans are wired for belonging. For most of human history, being rejected wasn't just emotionally painful. It was dangerous. If the tribe didn't want you, you didn't survive. So modern humans carry an ancient nervous system. And when your brain senses possible rejection, it reacts like survival is at stake. That's why a single unread message can feel heavier at night than it should. Not because you're needy, because your nervous system is asking, am I safe? And if it can't get an answer, it tries to create one. So your mind becomes a detective. It searches for clues. It studies everything. Their wording, their punctuation, their timing, their facial expressions, their silence. But here's the problem. You can't truly solve another person's mind at 2 a.m. You can only guess. And guessing is fuel for anxiety. So the replay continues. Now there's a philosophical layer to this that most people don't notice. We are social beings, yes, but we are also meaning-making beings. We don't just want connection. We want to know what we mean to other people, because what we mean to them becomes part of how we see ourselves. If someone's tone changes, a part of you panics. Did I lose value in their eyes? If someone pulls away, a part of you fears, am I replaceable? If someone is cold, a part of you wonders, was I ever really loved, or was I just convenient? The night amplifies these questions because the night is a mirror. It reflects back the places where your sense of self depends on external confirmation. So, let's be honest for a moment. When your mind replays conversations, it's not always searching for truth. It's often searching for reassurance. It wants to hear, you're okay. You didn't mess it up. They still care. You're not being abandoned. And if the world doesn't give you that reassurance, your mind tries to manufacture it. Or it manufactures the opposite, because the anxious mind would rather assume the worst than stay in uncertainty. So it says, they don't like you. You sounded stupid. You ruined it. They're losing interest. They're pulling away. You're not enough. And you feel that sting in your chest, even though you don't actually know. This is why the social replay is so exhausting. It's not just analysis. It's emotional dependency disguised as thinking. Now, I want to be gentle here, because this part can feel personal. If your mind does this a lot, it often means one of two things. Either you are in a relationship or environment where you genuinely don't feel secure, or you have an attachment wound, an old pattern where your nervous system learned love is unstable. And it's important to understand the difference, because if the insecurity is real, if someone is actually hot and cold with you, if someone is manipulative, if someone gives affection and then withdraws it, your mind isn't irrational. It's responding to a real pattern. But if the insecurity is internal, if the person is mostly consistent, but your mind still panics, then the replay is coming from your past, not your present. Either way, the solution at night is the same. You stop trying to solve social uncertainty with mental torture. Instead, you do something more mature and more calming. You say, if something is wrong, I will address it with clarity in the daytime. Not in the dark, not in the anxious hours, not while your nervous system is activated, because nighttime thinking makes everything feel heavier. So here's a simple practice you can try tonight. When your mind starts replaying a conversation, say, I can't know this right now. I don't need to know this right now. If I need an answer, I will ask when the sun is up. And then, this is the important part, bring your attention back to what is real in this exact moment. Real is, you are in bed, you are breathing, the room is quiet, you are safe enough to rest, the mind will protest. It will say, no, we need to solve this now. But you respond softly, not tonight. And then, if you want a deeper philosophical stance, you can remember this truth. You cannot control how others interpret you. You cannot control what they feel. You cannot control their inner world. The only thing you can control is your character, your honesty, your clarity, your presence. If you spoke with good intention, let it be. If you made a mistake, you can repair it tomorrow. But you do not need to punish yourself tonight. Because what keeps you awake isn't the conversation. It's the belief that your worth depends on the outcome. So I want to offer you a small thought that can be like a pillow for your mind. Your worth is not decided by one message. Your worth is not decided by one awkward moment. Your worth is not decided by someone's mood. Your worth is deeper than that. And if someone truly cares for you, they won't disappear because you are human. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to talk about something that sits underneath so much night overthinking, the need to control. Not control in a toxic way, control in a fearful way, the kind of control people develop when life has hurt them enough that they don't trust peace. And once you understand the psychology of control, you'll understand why your mind refuses to relax at night, and how to teach it gently that rest is not danger. So if your mind is still racing right now, just breathe. You don't have to solve your entire social world tonight. You just have to come back to the simplest truth. You are here, you are alive, and for this moment, you can rest. There are people who can lie down at night, close their eyes, and fall asleep in minutes. And then there are people who lie down and immediately feel tense, not because anything is happening, but because stillness itself feels unsafe. If you're in that second group, I want you to know something. It's not a personality flaw. It's not weakness. It's not overthinking as a habit. It's often the psychology of control. And control at its core is not about power. It's about fear. It's about a nervous system that learned a long time ago. If I don't stay alert, something bad happens. So even when life is calm, the body doesn't fully believe it. Even when nothing is wrong, your mind keeps searching for what could be wrong. Because for some people, peace feels unfamiliar. And what is unfamiliar can feel dangerous. Let's talk about why. Psychologically, the need for control often develops when someone has experienced unpredictability. Maybe your childhood was emotionally unpredictable. Maybe love was inconsistent. Maybe adults around you were unstable. Maybe you had to grow up too fast. Maybe you learned that mistakes had big consequences. Maybe you were punished for being human. So your nervous system adapted. It decided, I will not be caught off guard again. And you became vigilant. You started scanning. You started anticipating. You started rehearsing. You started overthinking. At first it worked. Control kept you safe in an unsafe environment. But later, control becomes a habit you can't turn off. Even in a safe room. Even in a quiet bed. Even with the door locked. Even when tomorrow is not an emergency. Your mind stays awake because it thinks, this is when we let our guard down, and that's when we get hurt. So peace becomes suspicious. Silence becomes suspicious. Stillness becomes suspicious. And the mind does what it always does when it suspects danger. It creates noise. It creates problems to solve. It creates scenarios. It creates worry. Because worry feels like a form of preparation. It's like the mind believes, if I'm worried, I'm ready. But here is the painful truth. Worry is not preparation. Worry is often just suffering in advance. Now let's bring in a philosophical layer here, because philosophy has been talking about control for centuries. The Stoics said something quietly radical. There are things within your control, and things outside your control. And most human suffering comes from trying to control what is uncontrollable. Not because you're foolish, but because you're afraid. You try to control how people see you. You try to control outcomes. You try to control the future. You try to control whether you'll be hurt again. But the universe doesn't negotiate. Life doesn't promise safety. The more you try to control everything, the tighter you become. And at night, when you're finally still, you feel the tightness you carried all day. Overthinking is often the mind's attempt to regain control in the only place it can, in imagination. If you can't control reality, you try to control the story. So you replay, rewrite, predict, rehearse. You fight imaginary battles so you feel less helpless, but the cost is sleep. The cost is peace. The cost is your nervous system never getting a chance to recover. Now, I want to say something that might land deeply for you. Sometimes the real reason you can't sleep isn't because you're too awake. It's because part of you doesn't believe you deserve rest, or doesn't believe rest is allowed. Some people were raised in a way that taught them, you rest when everything is done. But life is never fully done. There will always be another task, another concern, another uncertainty. So if you wait for complete control before you rest, you will never rest. That's the trap. Now let's make it practical, because this video is meant to help you tonight, not just explain you. Here's a simple truth. Sleep is an act of surrender. And surrender is difficult for people who have been hurt, because surrender feels like vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like danger. So how do you teach a control-driven mind to relax? You don't do it by commanding it. You do it by offering it proof of safety. Not proof that nothing bad will ever happen, but proof that you can handle life even if it does. This is the deepest shift. Your mind overthinks because it doesn't trust the future you. It doesn't trust that tomorrow you will cope, so it tries to do tomorrow's work tonight. So a powerful sentence to tell yourself at night is, I trust myself to handle tomorrow. Tomorrow. And if that sentence feels hard, that's okay, because trust is not a switch. It's a practice. So here's a gentler version. I don't have to solve everything tonight. I can rest and still be responsible. I can sleep and still be a good person. I can let go for a few hours without losing control of my life. Notice how these sentences aren't magical. They're just permission. And permission is what the control-driven mind needs. It needs to hear, you're allowed to stop. Now there is one more piece to this. Control doesn't just live in thoughts, it lives in the body. If your nervous system is chronically activated, your body will not fully relax, no matter how much you understand psychologically. So the next chapter will focus on something very grounding. How the body holds overthinking. Why your chest tightens. Why your jaw clenches. Why your stomach feels heavy at night. And most importantly, how to signal to your body that it can soften. Because sometimes the mind won't calm until the body calms first. So if you're listening to this in bed, right now, take one slow breath. Not a forced one, just a slow one. And notice, you don't have to control your whole life tonight. You only have to do one small thing. Let your nervous system feel just for a moment that the night is not an enemy, that you're here, that you're safe enough, and that you can rest. One of the biggest misunderstandings people have about overthinking is this. They believe it's only happening in the mind. But if you've ever been stuck in a spiral at night, you know the truth. Your body is involved. Your jaw tightens. Your chest feels heavy. Your stomach turns, your shoulders creep up, your breathing becomes shallow. Sometimes you're not even aware it's happening until you notice. I've been holding my breath. Overthinking is not just thought. It's a full nervous system state. And this matters because you can't calm the mind without calming the body. At least not completely. Psychologically, the body and mind are not separate systems. They're a loop. A thought triggers a body reaction. A body reaction triggers more thoughts, and the loop keeps itself alive. So if you've been trying to think your way out of overthinking and it hasn't worked, that doesn't mean you failed. It means you were trying to calm one part of a system while the other part was still screaming. Here's what's usually happening in the body during nighttime overthinking. Your nervous system is in a state of alertness. Not full panic maybe, but a quiet fight or flight. And fight or flight is not compatible with sleep. Your body is basically saying, we can't sleep right now. We need to stay aware. But aware of what? Sometimes, nothing. Sometimes it's just an old pattern. The body remembers stress even when the mind forgets why. This is something trauma psychology teaches very clearly. The body keeps the score. Even if you don't call your experiences trauma, your nervous system still remembers emotional unpredictability, pain, loss, humiliation, danger, abandonment. And at night, with the world quiet, your body has space to express what it held all day. This is why some people overthink more at night even when nothing obvious is happening in their life. Because the night is when the body finally speaks. Now, I want to give you a simple philosophical truth here, because it can be comforting. Your body is not trying to sabotage you, it's trying to protect you. If your body is tense, it's because it learned that tension equals readiness. It learned, if I relax, something happens. So your body stays ready, and your mind interprets that readiness as danger. Then thoughts appear to match the danger. This is why some people start worrying for no reason at night. The body starts the alarm, then the mind writes the story. So what do? We do something very gentle. We give the body a new signal, a signal that says, you can stand down now. The night is quiet. You can soften. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need complicated techniques for this. You just need to change a few small things in how you relate to your body in bed. Let's start with the simplest one, your exhale. When you're anxious, you breathe in a way that keeps you alert. Short inhale, short exhale, almost like you're preparing for something. But the nervous system calms through the exhale. A longer exhale tells the body, we're not running, we're not fighting, we're safe enough to rest. So right now, if you're listening in bed, try this softly. Inhale normally, then exhale a little slower than usual. Not forced, not dramatic, just a little longer. Do that again. And as you do it, notice something. Your body doesn't need you to win a battle tonight. It needs you to downshift. Another small practice is this, the jaw release. So many people hold anxiety in the jaw without realizing it. The jaw is connected to the threat system. Clenching is readiness. So gently relax your teeth. Let the tongue rest. Let the jaw be slightly open. Sometimes this alone changes the whole feeling of the night. Then we go to the shoulders. The shoulders are where responsibility sits. If you've been carrying too much, your shoulders are always slightly lifted. So just notice, are your shoulders creeping upward? If they are, let them drop by 1 centimeter. Not all the way, just 1 centimeter. Give your body a message. You don't have to hold the world up right now. Now there's one more thing that helps many people at night, and it sounds almost too simple. Pressure. The body calms under gentle pressure. A heavier blanket, a pillow against your chest, even your own hand resting on your sternum. This isn't spiritual. It's nervous system biology. Pressure is grounding. It tells your body, this is real, this is here, this is safe. So if you're in bed and your mind is racing, try placing one hand on your chest, not as a dramatic ritual, just as a quiet presence. And say to yourself softly, I'm here, I'm safe enough, I can rest. You'd be surprised how powerful this can be, because for many people the night isn't just lonely, it's unsupported, and that hand becomes a form of support. Now let's connect this back to psychology and philosophy. Psychology says, your nervous system needs safety signals. Philosophy says, peace is not found by conquering life. It's found by learning how to live with life without being in constant resistance. So when you relax the jaw, soften the shoulders, lengthen the exhale, you're not just doing a relaxation technique, you're practicing a deeper attitude. I don't have to fight reality tonight. And that attitude is what the anxious mind has been missing. You don't have to control your way into sleep. You soften your way into sleep. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to talk about something that completes this entire picture. Because once the mind softens and the body softens, there's still one thing that often pulls people back into thinking: the fear of tomorrow, the fear of the next day. The mind begins planning again. So we'll explore how to create a simple night philosophy, a way to place tomorrow in its proper place, so tonight can be quiet. A way to go to sleep without feeling like you're abandoning your responsibilities. So for now, if you're listening, just breathe. Let the exhale be a little longer. Let the jaw loosen. Let the shoulders drop. Not because life is perfect, but because you are allowed to rest even when life is unfinished. Psychology says, your nervous system needs safety signals. Philosophy says, peace is not found by conquering life. It's found by learning how to live with life without being in constant resistance. So when you relax the jaw, soften the shoulders, lengthen the exhale, you're not just doing a relaxation technique, you're practicing a deeper attitude. I don't have to fight reality tonight. And that attitude is what the anxious mind has been missing. You don't have to control your way into sleep. You soften your way into sleep. There's a moment that happens to a lot of people at night. You're finally starting to soften. Your body is tired. Your eyes are heavy. You feel like sleep is close. And then your mind does something so familiar it almost feels automatic. It opens tomorrow. Like a file, like a tab, like a door. Suddenly, you're thinking about the morning, the alarm, the messages you might wake up to, the work you have to do, the conversation you're avoiding, the thing you promised you'd handle, the thing you've been postponing, the pressure waiting for you, and the peace you were just about to feel disappears. This is tomorrow anxiety, and it's one of the biggest reasons people can't sleep, even when they're exhausted, because the mind isn't just tired, it's bracing. It's preparing for impact. Psychologically, tomorrow anxiety is a form of anticipatory stress. Your brain tries to reduce uncertainty by mentally rehearsing. It believes that if it runs through the next day enough times, you'll feel more in control. But rehearsal at night doesn't create control. It creates activation. It tells your body, stay awake. We're not safe yet. There's work to do. And once your body hears that message, sleep becomes harder. Now, if you've ever felt this, there's nothing wrong with you. This is a very normal human pattern, especially if you're carrying a lot, if you have responsibilities, if you're under pressure, if you're someone who cares, if you're someone who has learned that mistakes are costly. The mind becomes watchful. And the problem is, night is not designed for watchfulness. Night is designed for recovery. So when the mind refuses to let tomorrow go, it is like trying to drive a car with the brake and the gas at the same time. You want rest, but you're still preparing. Now let's bring in the philosophical layer, because it matters here. A big part of tomorrow anxiety comes from the illusion that tomorrow must be mastered before it arrives. But tomorrow has never asked to be mastered. Tomorrow will arrive whether you rehearse it or not. And the more you rehearse it in bed, the more tomorrow grows in your mind. It becomes bigger than it really is. This is something ancient philosophy understood deeply. The mind suffers most not from reality, but from imagined futures. And yet, this is so human. We think ahead because we care. We think ahead because we don't want to be hurt. We think ahead because we want to prevent failure. But at night, the mind confuses prevention with punishment. It punishes you with preparation. So what do? We don't tell the mind, stop caring. We don't tell the mind, tomorrow doesn't matter. That would feel dishonest. Instead, we do something more intelligent and more gentle. We give tomorrow a place, because what keeps your mind busy is not tomorrow itself. It's the feeling that tomorrow is floating, uncontained, unfinished. So the mind grabs it, over and over, trying to hold it, trying to secure it. But you can't secure tomorrow in the dark. You can only exhaust yourself. So here's a practice that works for tomorrow anxiety. And it works because it respects the mind's need for containment. It's called closing the day. You don't have to do it perfectly, you just do it simply. If you're listening to this in bed, you can do a small version right now. Ask yourself, what is the one thing my mind is afraid of tomorrow? Not 10 things, just one. Maybe it's, I'm afraid I won't handle everything. I'm afraid I'll fail. I'm afraid I'll be overwhelmed. I'm afraid I'll disappoint someone. I'm afraid I'll feel trapped. Now, instead of spiraling into that fear, you answer it with one sentence. I will handle what I can when it arrives. That's it. Not everything will be easy. Not nothing bad will happen. Just I will handle what I can when it arrives. This sentence is powerful because it shifts you from control to trust. Now, if tomorrow anxiety is really strong for you, here's another gentle tool. A tomorrow container. This is very simple. You take a notebook or your phone notes earlier in the evening, not right now if you're already sleepy, and you write, tomorrow, 3 small priorities. Just 3. Not 20. Not your whole life. 3. Because the mind spirals when it feels life is undefined. When you define 3 small priorities, your mind feels, okay, we have a plan, and then it can let go. Tomorrow anxiety often comes from the mind trying to plan the entire day with no structure, and that's impossible. So it spins. Instead, you give it structure. 3 priorities, 1 small step, and then you tell yourself, the rest can wait. Now, there is a deeper truth under tomorrow anxiety, and I want to say it gently. Often, tomorrow anxiety is not really about tomorrow. It's about your relationship with yourself. Some people fear tomorrow because they don't trust themselves to cope. They don't trust themselves to be strong enough, smart enough, calm enough. So the mind stays awake, preparing, because it doesn't believe you. It doesn't believe you will handle it. So part of calming tomorrow anxiety is rebuilding self-trust. Not with affirmations that feel fake, but with honesty, like, I have survived difficult days before. I have handled things I thought I couldn't handle. I have made mistakes and recovered. I don't need perfection to get through tomorrow. That kind of trust is realistic. It doesn't deny difficulty. It simply reminds the nervous system, we are capable, and capability is calming. Now, one more thing. Tomorrow, anxiety is often strongest when you bring work or pressure into bed. Bed becomes a planning desk, a worry room, a stress zone. So even psychologically, the brain learns bed-ding thinking. If you can, even in small ways, you want bed to become bed-ding letting go. So when you notice your mind opening tomorrow like a file, you can say, tomorrow is real, but tonight is for rest. Again, it's not denial, it's boundaries. And boundaries are psychological safety, a boundary between the day and the night, a boundary between responsibility and rest. Most night overthinking, when you strip it down, is really about one thing: uncertainty, not knowing, not being able to guarantee what happens next, not being able to control outcomes, people, timing, health, money, love, life. And for some minds, uncertainty doesn't feel like a neutral space. It feels like a threat. So the mind tries to remove uncertainty the only way it knows how. By thinking, by planning, by predicting, by rehearsing, by imagining every possible outcome, especially the worst ones. Because the anxious mind would rather live in a painful certainty than sit in an open question. So if you want your nights to become quieter, you don't just have to calm thoughts. You have to change your relationship with the unknown. Psychology explains this clearly. The brain is a prediction machine. Its job is to anticipate what might happen so you can survive. That worked well when danger was physical and immediate. But modern danger is often psychological. Rejection, failure, loss, embarrassment, loneliness, meaninglessness. You can't fight these dangers with a spear. So the brain tries to fight them with forecasts. It tries to think you safe. But there is a point where prediction becomes a prison, and that point is usually at night. Philosophy has been wrestling with this problem long before modern psychology existed. And what philosophers discovered, over and over, is something simple and almost shocking. Life is uncertain by nature, so the goal isn't to eliminate uncertainty. The goal is to become the kind of person who can live inside uncertainty without collapsing. That is the real strength. Not certainty, stability inside uncertainty. This is why the Stoics are so popular today. Not because they promised happiness, but because they offered a mental posture that reduces suffering. Stop demanding that life be predictable. Start building your ability to respond. Epictetus said it in different words, but the spirit is this. You can't control what happens to you. You can control what you do with what happens. The anxious mind tries to control what happens. The calm mind focuses on what it can do when it happens. That shift changes everything, because it removes the impossible job, guarantee the future, and replaces it with a possible job, meet the future. Now I want to make this human because this isn't meant to be a lecture. If you're someone who overthinks at night, you probably have this inner feeling, if I don't figure it out, something bad will happen. That's not logic, that's fear. And fear is often a memory. A nervous system memory of a time when you were surprised by pain, when life changed suddenly, when someone left, when something went wrong, when you felt powerless. So now the mind thinks, we won't be surprised again. And it tries to become a prophet. But prophecy is exhausting. Because you can't outsmart life. Life has too many variables. So what's the alternative? The alternative is something philosophy teaches gently. Acceptance. And acceptance is misunderstood. Acceptance does not mean liking uncertainty. It does not mean being passive. It means stopping the internal war with reality. It means saying, I don't know what will happen and I can still live. That sentence is so simple and yet it's freedom. Because the anxious mind secretly believes, if I don't know, I can't breathe. But you can. You have been doing it your whole life. Now psychologically, there's a very specific mechanism that makes uncertainty painful. The mind tries to close open loops. An open loop is something unfinished. A question with no answer. A relationship with unclear intention. A future with no guarantee. A decision with no certainty. At night, open loops feel heavier because you're not busy. So the mind tries to close them. And if it can't close them with real answers, it closes them with imaginary answers, usually negative ones. That's why people spiral into worst-case scenarios at night. Not because they're pessimistic, because their mind is trying to finish the loop. So here's a key idea that both psychology and philosophy support. You don't need to close every loop tonight. You just need to tolerate it being open. That's maturity, that's peace. And it begins with one skill, letting questions remain questions. Instead of forcing an answer in the dark, you say, I don't know. And I don't have to know tonight. That second part is the medicine, because the mind thinks, if we don't know, we're irresponsible. But that's not true. You can be responsible and still accept the unknown. In fact, the most responsible people are often the ones who can live with uncertainty without panicking, because panic creates bad decisions. Now, here's a gentle practice you can do when uncertainty shows up in your mind at night. When your brain asks, what if? Answer with, maybe, maybe not. That's it. This is a stoic-like practice. You're not arguing with the thought, you're not feeding it, you're simply acknowledging uncertainty. What if I fail? Maybe. Maybe not. What if they don't love me? Maybe. Maybe not. What if I never figure it out? Maybe. Maybe not. This sounds almost too simple, but it changes the nervous system because it removes the demand for certainty. It tells your mind, we don't need to resolve this right now. And then you add one more sentence. Whatever happens, I will meet it when it comes. That's the philosophy of uncertainty in one line. Whatever happens, I will meet it when it comes. Not I will prevent it. Not I will guarantee it. Just I will meet it. This is where real calm comes from. Not from controlling the future, but from trusting your ability to face it. Now, a deeper philosophical truth. We overthink because we want life to be fair. We want effort to guarantee outcomes. We want love to guarantee safety. We want being a good person to guarantee that nothing bad happens. But life doesn't work like that. And part of adult peace is accepting that. Not cynically, not bitterly, just honestly. Because when you accept it, you stop being shocked by the human condition. You stop being personally offended by uncertainty. You stop treating unpredictability like a personal attack. You begin to live with it the way you live with weather. You prepare, yes, but you don't panic every time the sky changes. Now, if you're listening to this in bed and you feel your mind racing, I want you to try a gentle sequence. First, I don't know. Second, and I don't have to know tonight. Third, whatever happens, I will meet it when it comes. Say it slowly. Let it land. Because those sentences are not just words. They are an invitation to stop fighting the unknown. And when you stop fighting the unknown, the mind has less to do. It stops scanning, it stops rehearsing, it stops demanding answers at midnight. It begins to soften into something it forgot how to do. Trust. Let's make this practical now. Because understanding psychology and philosophy is powerful. But at night, you don't want a lecture. You want something that actually helps your nervous system soften. Something simple enough to do when you're tired. Something humane. Something that doesn't feel like a strict ritual you'll fail at. So this is not a perfect routine. This is a human routine. A night routine for people whose minds don't switch off easily. And the goal of this routine isn't to force sleep. The goal is to send your brain a consistent message. The day is over. You can stop scanning now. Think of it like training a guard dog to lie down, not by yelling at it, by showing it again and again. It's safe enough. Here are the steps. You don't need all of them every night. Even one or two can help. The power is in repetition, not perfection. The first step is what I call closing the open loops. Overthinking is often a loop problem. Unfinished tasks, unfinished conversations, unfinished decisions, unfinished emotions. Your mind keeps them open because it's afraid you'll forget. So instead of trying to hold everything in your head, you create a container outside your head. Earlier in the evening, ideally not in bed, you write down 3 things. 1. What I need to remember. 2. What I need to do tomorrow. 3. What I'm carrying emotionally. Not paragraphs, just short lines. For example, email John, call mom, worried about money, feeling lonely, still thinking about that argument. When you put it on paper, you're telling your brain, it's recorded. You can release it. The mind relaxes when it trusts that you won't lose something important, and writing is proof. The second step is a gentle transition. Most people try to go from full stimulation to sleep in 2 minutes. They scroll, watch, message, absorb noise, and then expect the mind to be quiet instantly. But the nervous system needs a bridge. So you create a transition that is boring in a good way. Not boring like depressing, boring like safe. For example, low light, no bright screens. One calm video or audio, like this. Slow music, a warm shower, stretching, a book with calm content. The specific activity doesn't matter, the message matters. We are lowering intensity now. The third step is my favorite because it's simple, the tomorrow boundary. Right before bed you say, out loud if you want, or quietly inside, tomorrow can wait. And then you choose one small thing to reassure your mind. I know what the first step is tomorrow. Not the whole day, just the first step. For example, tomorrow the first step is sending that email. Tomorrow the first step is making that call. Tomorrow the first step is getting up and taking a shower. This calms the brain because it reduces the feeling of chaos. The brain doesn't need the whole map. It needs the first direction. The fourth step is more psychological than it looks. A self-trust sentence. If you're a heavy thinker, you often carry a hidden belief. If I stop thinking, I'll lose control. So you replace it with a belief that calms instead of activates. Something like, I trust myself to handle tomorrow. Or I don't have to solve my life tonight. Or I can rest and still be responsible. Choose one sentence that feels true enough to say without feeling fake. Because fake affirmations annoy the brain. But honest reassurance calms it. The fifth step is body-based, the downshift. You don't need a full meditation, just a downshift. The simplest downshift is a longer exhale. Inhale normally, exhale slower. Do that 3 times. Then soften your jaw. Drop your shoulders. Let your belly be soft. You don't need to force relaxation. Just stop bracing. Even 1 centimeter less bracing is progress. Now here's the 6th step, and this is a big one. The no problem solving in bed rule. This rule changes everything for chronic overthinkers. Because if your bed becomes a place where you solve problems, your brain will associate bed with thinking. So you teach it. Bed is not a thinking desk. Bed is not a courtroom. Bed is not a planning office. Bed is a resting place. So when a problem shows up in bed, you do one of 2 things. If it's urgent and real, you write 1 line. I'll handle this tomorrow. If it's not urgent, you say, not tonight. And you return to the breath. This is boundary setting with your own mind. And it's surprisingly powerful. The 7th step is philosophical. Let life be unfinished. This is the hardest one. Because many people feel like they have to earn sleep by being done. But life is never done. There will always be another task, another message, another uncertainty. So you practice one of the most mature forms of peace. You let the day be incomplete. You let the world continue without you for a few hours. You accept that you are not the universe's manager. And that is not weakness. That is wisdom. Now you might be listening and thinking, this sounds good, but what if my thoughts still come? They will. Thoughts are normal. The goal isn't a blank mind. The goal is a softer mind, a mind that doesn't escalate every thought into a crisis. So if thoughts come, you don't panic. You treat it like weather passing through. You say, my mind is doing what minds do. I don't have to follow every thought. I can let it pass. And then slowly, the brain begins to learn. The night is not a place where we fight. It's a place where we release. Why the night brings existential questions. The what am I doing with my life thoughts. The is this all there is thoughts. The why do I feel empty thoughts. These are not random. They are the mind asking for meaning. And once you understand that, you stop fearing those thoughts. You learn how to hold them gently without letting them steal your sleep. So stay with me. Because what comes next is not just psychology. It's the human condition, spoken softly in the dark. There's a kind of thought that doesn't feel like worry. It feels like a doorway. You're lying in bed, the room is quiet, and suddenly a question appears that's bigger than tomorrow. Not, did I send that email? But, is this really my life? Where am I going? Why do I feel empty? Am I becoming who I'm supposed to become? Is love supposed to feel like this? Is this all there is? These thoughts can feel heavy, almost frightening because they don't have quick answers. And if you've ever been hit by them at night, you know what I mean. They don't feel like normal thoughts. They feel like a deep inner voice speaking from somewhere beneath your daily personality. Psychology and philosophy both have something to say about this. Psychology would tell you, At night, your defenses are lower. All day, you're busy managing an identity. You perform, you function, you solve, you distract, you cope. But at night, the performance stops. You're no longer playing a role. You're no longer proving anything. You're no longer being watched. And that's when the deeper self speaks. Philosophy would tell you something even more direct. The night confronts you with existence. You can run from yourself in the day, but you can't run from yourself in the dark. Not forever. So the mind starts asking the questions you avoid. And here's the part that most people don't realize. These questions are not a sign that something is wrong with you. They're a sign that something is alive in you. A part of you that wants meaning. A part of you that refuses to live on autopilot forever. The painful thing is that we live in a world that teaches us to silence this part. We're taught to be productive, not reflective. We're taught to be efficient, not honest. We're taught to fill every quiet moment with noise. So when quiet finally arrives, the existential self wakes up, and it asks, are you living in a way that feels true? Now, for many people, this is where the spiral gets worse, because the mind doesn't just ask the question, it demands an answer tonight. It wants clarity right now. And that's where suffering begins, because meaning is not something you solve in one night. Meaning is something you build over time. So let's bring in a concept that is both psychological and philosophical. The difference between a question that needs an answer and a question that needs to be lived. Some questions can be answered with information, but existential questions can't be answered like that. They have to be lived. What is my purpose? That's not an information question. That's a life question. Am I with the right person? That's not a midnight math problem. That's something you learn through honesty, patterns, and time. Why do I feel empty? That's not solved by one insight. That's solved by listening to what your emptiness is pointing to. So when these thoughts arrive at night, the goal is not to crush them. The goal is to hold them gently, to say, this is a meaningful question, and I don't need to solve it right now. That's the key. Because the night is not always asking you to fix your life. Sometimes the night is simply asking you to notice your life. Now, let's be even more human. Often these existential thoughts show up when one of three things is true. 1, you are living out of alignment. You're doing things, but they don't feel like you. You're saying yes to things that drain you. You're staying in situations that shrink you. 2, you are emotionally underfed. You have responsibilities, but not enough nourishment. You go through days, but you don't feel deeply connected to anything. 3, you are avoiding grief. Maybe you lost something, time, a person, a dream, a version of yourself. And you kept going. But grief doesn't disappear, it waits. And at night it speaks in the language of meaning. What mattered? What do I miss? What did I lose? This is why nighttime overthinking can feel so intense. It's not just anxiety, it's sometimes your soul asking for honesty. And philosophy has always respected this. Many philosophers believe that the discomfort of these questions is not a disease. It's a signal that you are awake, a signal that you're not satisfied with shallow living, a signal that part of you wants to become more conscious. But here's the problem. If you try to answer those questions at midnight, you suffer. Because midnight is a distorted lens. Everything feels darker. Everything feels more final. Your mind is tired, your emotions are amplified, and your body is vulnerable. So existential thoughts at night often sound like, I'm running out of time. I'm wasting my life. I'll never figure it out. But that's not always truth, that's tiredness speaking. That's nervous system fatigue creating dramatic conclusions. So here's a softer way to respond. When you get a big existential question at night, try saying, this matters, and I will return to it in the daylight. Not because you're avoiding it, because you're respecting it. Big questions deserve a clearer mind. They deserve daylight. They deserve a nervous system that isn't in survival mode. So you make a quiet agreement with yourself. I'm not ignoring my life. I'm choosing the right moment to reflect. And if you want something practical, here's a small ritual that many people find calming. When a big question appears, you write it down as a single sentence. not an essay, just the question. Am I living the life I want? What do I really need right now? What am I afraid to admit? What am I avoiding? Then you close the notebook and tell yourself, this question is safe. I won't lose it. I'll meet it later. This is powerful because it stops the mind from panicking. It says, yes, I heard you. No, we don't have to solve it tonight. Now this chapter has a purpose, because the next step in calming night overthinking is learning a deeper form of letting go. Not the shallow kind where you pretend you don't care. The real kind where you care, but you don't cling. Where you accept that some answers come slowly. Where you can rest even in the presence of unfinished meaning. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about that directly. How to let go without losing control. How to release the mind's grip without abandoning your life. Because that is what peaceful sleep really is. Not the absence of depth, but the ability to carry depth gently so it doesn't crush you in the dark. ChatGPT puede cometer errores. Cons. For someone who overthinks at night, letting go can sound like a threat. Because in your mind, letting go feels like, I'm giving up. I'm being irresponsible. I'm not taking life seriously. I'm going to miss something important. I'll lose control and everything will fall apart. So when people say, just let it go, it can feel almost insulting, like telling a drowning person, just relax. But there's a deeper truth here. Letting go isn't the opposite of caring. Letting go is the opposite of clinging, and clinging is what exhausts you at night. Clinging to an outcome, clinging to a person's approval, clinging to certainty, clinging to an identity, clinging to a perfect version of your life. You can care deeply without clinging. That's the difference. Psychologically, clinging is the mind's attempt to feel safe through control. Philosophically, clinging is the refusal to accept reality as it is. And sleep, real sleep, is the practice of not clinging for a few hours. That's why sleep is so hard for anxious minds. Because sleep requires surrender. So the question becomes, how do you surrender without feeling like you're abandoning yourself? How do you let go without feeling like you're losing control? The answer starts with a very honest realization. You already don't control most things. This is not pessimistic, it's freeing. You don't control when people change. You don't control time. You don't control the past. You don't control what others think. You don't control the moment life surprises you. What you do control, mostly, is your response. And this is where real peace lives. Not in controlling life, but in trusting yourself to respond to life. Overthinking is the mind trying to control life by thinking harder. Letting go is the mind learning, I can stop thinking right now and I'll still be okay. But how do you actually do that at night? Not as a philosophy, as a lived experience. Here's the simplest doorway into letting go. You stop trying to solve the entire future, and you return to something smaller, the next right step. Many anxious minds are not afraid of effort. They're afraid of not knowing. They would work all night if it guaranteed certainty. But nothing guarantees certainty, so the mind spirals. Letting go means saying, I don't need certainty to rest. I only need enough clarity for the next step. That's it. Not the whole plan, not the whole life, just the next step. And when you give your mind permission to only hold the next step, the rest begins to loosen. Now, there's another layer to letting go, and it's emotional. Overthinking is often a form of emotional refusal. A refusal to accept pain, loss, disappointment, or limitation. So the mind keeps rewriting scenarios, replaying conversations, imagining different outcomes. Because it wants a different reality. But reality is already here. So letting go sometimes means something heartbreaking but honest. Accepting what happened. Accepting who someone is. Accepting what you cannot change. This is one of the hardest things to do as a human being. And it often comes at night. Because in the dark, you can't distract yourself from truth. So here is a very gentle way to practice letting go without collapsing. When a thought shows up about a person, a regret, a fear, try this sentence. I release the need to fix this right now. That sentence doesn't mean you'll never address it. It means you stop demanding immediate resolution. You're telling your nervous system, we can carry this without tightening around it. Now, if you want a philosophical anchor, one of the strongest is this: everything is temporary. Your anxiety is temporary. This night is temporary. This feeling is temporary. Even your current identity is temporary. That's not depressing, it's relief. Because the anxious mind acts like this moment is forever, like this fear defines your life, like this feeling is a prophecy. But it's not. It's a moment. And letting go means you stop treating a moment like a life sentence. You let it pass. Another philosophical anchor is the Stoic one. What is not up to me is not my burden tonight. That sentence can feel like a warm blanket because it helps you separate what you can control tomorrow from what you cannot control at all. And that separation is peace. Now, I want to make this even more human. There's a reason letting go feels hard. Because many people learn that their value comes from effort, from doing, from fixing, from being responsible. So at night, when they rest, they feel guilt. They feel like they're failing by not thinking. And this is where a deeper reframe matters. Rest is not laziness. Rest is repair. Rest is intelligence. Rest is how your brain processes emotions. Rest is how your nervous system recovers. Rest is how you become capable of facing life again. So if you feel guilty for wanting to sleep, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not falling behind by resting. You are preparing. And sometimes the most responsible thing you can do is stop trying to control everything and give your body the recovery it needs. Now, let me offer you a final letting go practice, one that many people find surprisingly effective. Imagine placing your thoughts outside the room, not in a mystical way, in a practical way. You can even visualize a small box beside the bed. When a thought appears, you say, "Not tonight," and you place it in the box. You're not throwing it away, you're storing it. You're telling your mind, we're not ignoring this, we're postponing it with respect. This is how you let go without fear, because what the anxious mind fears most is forgetting. So you reassure it, I won't forget. I will return to this, but right now I rest. And then you breathe, and you let the body soften. Now we're almost at the end of this journey. In the final chapter, we're going to bring everything together, not with a dramatic ending, with a calm descent. A final message designed to leave your mind softer than it was when you began listening. A closing that feels like someone gently turning down the lights inside you. So if you've stayed with me this long, just notice something. Your mind is capable of slowing. Your nervous system is capable of softening. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped fighting it. And that's the beginning of real rest. Some leaves are regrets, some are fears, some are questions, some are memories, some are faces of people you wish understood you. You don't have to grab the leaves, you don't have to chase them, you don't have to build a raft from them. You can watch them pass, and each time you notice yourself grabbing one, you simply release your hand. Not aggressively, just gently, and you let it float. This is what letting go really is. Not forgetting, not denial, not numbness, just releasing the grip. Because gripping is what keeps you awake. So tonight, you release. Not your life, not your values, not your future. Just the grip. You let your jaw soften. You let your shoulders drop. You let your breath lengthen. You let the night hold you for a while. And if a thought returns, as thoughts often do, you can whisper almost like a lullaby. Not tonight. Tomorrow can wait. I don't have to live tomorrow tonight. Say it slowly. Let your body feel the permission. Because permission is what tired minds need. Now, if you're listening in bed and your eyes are heavy, let them be heavy. If your body is sinking into the mattress, let it sink. You don't need to hold yourself up anymore. You don't need to guard the world. You don't need to manage life for a few hours. The world will still be there in the morning, and you will still be you. So this is your final message for the night. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are not broken because you think too much. You are human, and you deserve rest. Let the mind slow. Let the body soften. Let the night be quiet. And when sleep comes, even if it comes slowly, welcome it like something gentle you didn't have to earn. good night.